Good morning. So I want to talk about I want to talk about being in the places that you fear the most, in order to accelerate your spiritual awakening. So we all have these places, and now the thing is that with the places that we fear, it's like these Pandora boxes that we have within ourselves. It's the places that we're not willing to go. And we're kind of, because we are afraid of these places, we've created these mechanisms that kind of automatically close them off. So the first part of being in the places that you fear the most is even recognizing the places that you fear. Um, we have these things in us that we are afraid to touch, or subject matters that we are afraid to go into because they're kind of they feel all like, yeah, that's the feeling to them when you open up these Pandora boxes, like, so you get to be completely uncomfortable and like, oh, you don't want to talk about this subject, and you try to avoid these subjects again and again and again. And what happens is it starts to become an automatic. You don't even realize that you're avoiding the subjects, but they are controlling your life, because every time something comes up in life that is pushing on that little button, that is pushing on that, that is threatening that Pandora box from having to open, you start avoiding it. And the avoidance happens in different kinds of behaviors. Some people will have like explosive tempers, or some people will just go into victim mode and start crying or break down, or will start changing the subject to a different subject, or there's all sorts of behaviors that we create to avoid opening these Pandora boxes of the places that we fear to go within ourselves. And really, as we go along the spiritual awakening, we're slowly opening up these Pandora boxes with all of these fears in them. And so a way to really accelerate the spiritual awakening is awareness, to start paying attention. Start paying attention to behaviors that you have of avoidance, behaviors that allow you not to go into these places, and really start these sticky places. They're like sticky places. Now you can do the work alongside other people. You can do the work with therapists. You can do the work with people that are open to talk about these subjects with you, or you can do the work on your own, which is paying attention to these places, replaying. Let's say there's places in your life that your temper was blown, or places in your life where you started crying. Crying is a place where you are. It is it. See, crying, there's a lot of different parameters to it. Crying is also part of releasing your weaknesses, and releasing um, a lot of times when you come to a massive realization or you're overcoming pain, the crying is a natural part of it because it allows you to go deep within. But also when you do have like these places of crying, it's a place where you can go in and actually look and see what was the trigger for that, what made that behavior come up. And it's an opportunity for self growth. It's an opportunity to really be in a place that you fear, and see what the root cause is for that. um, so really to accelerate your spiritual awakening is to really go in and explore the places within ourselves that we fear. It could be places that make us, it's usually very many times, as places that you feel inadequate, places that you feel like you're going to be found out. Somebody's going to really know that I'm not worth it. And when you start opening up these Pandora boxes, you start seeing that, first of all, they were formed in very, very early childhood before we even had judgment in order to make us proper assessments. And when you reopen these Pandora boxes, you see that the fear is just smoke. There is no fear. Fear is like a big bubble. It's something that when you pass through it, you don't fear it anymore. So you can release the fear, and then you become strong in these places, and you can embrace your archetypes. Your archetypes are your structures of behavior that come in under your ego, right? So they're like these energies that come in, and they have structure to them. And these archetypes, either you can embrace the strengths of them, their power, and then you become a powerful being. Or if you're not able to embrace the powerful side, you see it's like a spectrum. It comes full circle. There's paradoxes. When you find a paradox, you find a whole. You find it, you find the black and the light. You find the light and the dark. You found a sphere. You find a whole. Um, and so these archetypes, they have their strengths, and they have, if you don't fully come into grasping and holding and taking care and using, I see it kind of like a superpower, these archetypes. You can use the powers of the archetypes, or you can fall into the shadows of the archetypes, which are the behaviors that when you are not standing in your full power, then they are the shadows. They're the exact opposite on the spectrum. They're the weaknesses, where if you're afraid to stand up in your full power, then you fall into being victimized and into the weaknesses of the archetypes. And I'm going to pause this for a second. I'm going to go in, and I'm going to try to find an example of this within my own archetypes of holding the strength or being in the weakness. So I'm going to pause this for a second. Okay, so I found a very simple form of archetype example, which would be like a hero or somebody that feels like they need to be saved. So on the one hand, you have the hero, which has all the attributes of coming in and saving the day and being strong and standing against the dark forces and somebody who believes in themselves and is fully confident and then on the other side of the spectrum, you have the victim, the one who feels like they need to be saved and that they are weak and that they can't do it themselves, and they're waiting for the savior to come in and save the day, the damsel in distress. And when you really look at it, in order to be a damsel in distress, in order to be on the weakness side, you have to have that hero within you. You have to be able to conceive what a hero is. So that means that you have both sides of the archetype within you. It's just that you don't believe that that you have the capabilities of being on this side of the archetype. So you go into the darkness, into the shadows of it, into not standing up in your own strength. Now, if you have the damsel in distress within you, come and save me, and you can perceive the opposite side of the spectrum, which is the hero, that means that you have all of the capability of all of those attributes within yourself. It's the opposite of this. So this would be the shadows, and this would be the standing up in your full strength, as well as if you are the hero and you come in and save the day, you recognize the damsel in distress. That means that you have the opposite side of that archetype within you as well. It's the full spectrum. So you are able to perceive that that person needs saving, that you can see where they are in their weaknesses because you have those attributes in the opposite. So those are the two sides of the archetype. And wherever you have the weakness, you have the capability of standing up and holding the full power of the strengths. So really where you find the darkness is where you can flip it into the strengths and stand within your power. So I'm trying to think, how did we get there? By being in the places that you fear the most. So if you are able to come out of them, if you're able to like during the spiritual awakening, we kind of come up above ourselves and kind of look in at our own life and see what we're doing down there. So we're also the experiencer. We're down here experiencing life. Oh, I'm the damsel in distress. I need saved. But then we come up for a second. We say, hey, wait a minute. What is that damsel in distress down there doing? You know, we come up and we are also we're also the experiencer of our life, but we are also the observer of ourselves. And when we're able to pull out of the victim mode or out of the just being the experiencer and we become into the place of being the observer, and we can remove the ego where when we go through ego death, or over, I don't like ego death because it's not really death, it's more like taking power back over ourselves, and we become the masters of our ego. Then we are able to come out and kind of observe ourselves from a clean perspective. That means just like we would observe another person and be able to see their attributes and see what they're doing, we can kind of come out of ourselves with a clean mind and a clean perception, without, what is the word? There's a word, but I'm not going to get stuck on it. When you come out and you can see yourself clearly without being, without taking it personally, then you can start seeing these archetypes. You can start seeing the places that we're not standing up in our power. And by understanding a little bit of, okay, wait a minute, if I don't want to be the damsel in distress, then what is the opposite behavior of that? It's kind of like you can take a jealousy and you can turn it into, you can alchemize it into inspiration, because jealousy is false. It's a pass-through emotion. It's false because we all have our own, if you're jealous of somebody else, it's actually saying I'm unworthy of feeling that way, of being that way, of being in full expression. It doesn't have to be, exactly what the other person is doing, because each of us are individual, but it's a pass-through emotion. It's the same pattern. So we can take jealousy and we can turn it into inspiration. Oh, that person is doing something so cool. I'd like to do something like that too. And then where can I create that in my own life? And so it's kind of the same. So really I'm going to go ahead and sum this up. Really to accelerate your spiritual awakening is to be in the places that you fear the most, so that you can open up those Pandora boxes, go in and see what the fear is about, and then it dissipates just like that. It passes through. Fear, there's a couple of different kinds of fear. There's fear because there's an imminent danger right here. There's a lion right here, and this lion is about ready to, pounce on me. And that is fear. And then you don't have to worry about it anyway, because your instincts are going to snap in to you're going to have the reaction that your instincts are going to bring you into reaction. And then we have the fear. And if you notice, fear is always the other kind of fear, the fear of, oh no, that is always fear that is in the future. And the future is not here. It's your projection of the past events or stories that you've heard. It's taking that and projecting it into the future. Oh no, that and this could happen, but the future isn't here. The future is still not of substance. The only time is here and now. And right here and now, if you are in a safe place, you have food, there's plants growing, all options are open in the future. So nothing was defined except for what you are defining it in your mind. And if you are projecting these fears into the future, you are more likely to bring them into play. And one thing that I've also noticed is that so many times you project all these different scenarios and you live these scenarios in the future, and it never is exactly as you had projected it. Or you create the reality that, because if you have these projections, these fear-based projections into the future, you start creating that reality in the future because you're projecting it onto the future. If you're thinking that everything is going to unfold in a certain way, it doesn't matter what happens in the universe. You're going to start seeing signs. Oh no, that person said this, that means this. And you're going to start putting meaning on things, and you are actually going to start putting a sequence of events into play to create that reality that you have projected, because you're expecting it to happen. You're expecting it to happen. So everything that happens, which if you weren't expecting that outcome, something would happen and you wouldn't take it in that way. You would take it in a different way, or it wouldn't have meaning. All of a sudden, things start getting the meaning of the projection that you are putting into the future. So you can also take your future and project like this wonderful outcome that's going to happen, and start visualizing it. This is how visualizing and creating your reality works. You start visualizing it, and then you start seeing the signs of its creation um, being formed. And so you can take this into any direction that you want. So really it's about being in the places that you fear the most, going through them and releasing them. And then taking control of your own life and moving it into the direction that you want. So I really appreciate you watching. Thank you.